All
Sounds
right.
great. Looks like we've got a crowd and a quorum. So thanks everybody for joining here for our webinar, From Chaos to Clarity, basically reviewing the case for better efficiency through consolidation and what that looks like. Today, we're going to tackle a challenge that nearly every firm out there is facing, the reality of chaos in tax and audit operations. Not just disconnected, but disparate systems, manual workarounds, fragmented client touch points, not only slowing productivity, but also it's a drain on both staff morale and obviously client satisfaction. So today we're going to be exploring the strategic role of technology consolidation. Technology is just what, like I like to say, one leg of the stool. It involves things like change management and implementation, how to navigate the people side of the transformation to ensure your investments actually stick. So we'll cover that as well. From there, we'll look at the benefits of unifying platforms, including the impact on client experience, things like talent retention, and then we'll wrap up with just going off some of the considerations, some of the outcomes, looking back at some of the things that potentially can help all of you not only learn and enlighten you to how to get started on some of these things, but how to basically implement best practices to achieve the right optimal results. And I'm joined by two industry luminaries and experts in their field. Alan Whitman, the former CEO of Baker Tilly, who helped transform Baker to become the multi-billion-dollar behemoth that they are in accounting as a top 10 accounting firm. During his leadership, he drove strategic technology initiatives, including one with ourselves as a partner that transformed the firm's operations and client service capabilities. So appreciate you being here, Alan. Great to have you. I'm also joined by Penny Bustamante, who's the COO at Anchin. As COO, Penny leads operational excellence and technology transformational initiatives, among other things. She was instrumental in implementing HubSync as a unified platform across the firm. And so she'll be able to share some practical insights on change management, implementation strategies, and what that looked like for their firm. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And I'll start with just what does chaos look like today? And maybe I'll start with each one of you, Alan and Penny. Maybe I'll start with you, Alan. When I say the word chaos in tax and audit operations, that means different things to different people. What does that look like in reality from your point of view as a former CEO at most firms today? Are you there, Alan?
Alan, you're on mute. Why don't we have Penny take the call?
Yeah, I'll transition over to you, Penny. When I say the word chaos in tax and audit operations, what does that look like in reality for most firms today? Maybe using Anchin as an example.
I mean, chaos can show up in many different ways, right? So here's some examples of things I've seen at our firm that I know I've talked to others at their firm, and they've had the same experience. So recurring bottlenecks in processes and workflows where there's lots of fire drills, lots of scrambling to meet deadlines, fragmented and inconsistent processes among the teams, groups working in silos, disparate tools or systems that don't talk to each other, and you're scrambling around to figure out where things are and how to get things to talk to each other. And I would also add to that when you have no single source of truth to your data. So it's really hard to like pull information and intelligence out and find out where things are. So those are some of the experiences we had and that I know other firms share.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for that. And obviously, those are the signals you start to probably get at a company like Anchin that made it clear that you needed to move away from patchwork and look at starting to implement more of a unified single platform, it sounds like.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's true. We also had, I think when you talk about like cultural signals or operational signals, I think if you think about but inefficiency of things that you do, for example, when we're sending requests for information to clients and then it drops off for several months until somebody remembers we're missing data, or when clients don't have one spot to go to for their data and for some of the like their tax return and then their financial statements, all that sort of have people looking in different places for different things was definitely an operational signal. And you know what I was thinking about in getting ready for today, the cultural behavior. When you have chaos, you have ownership issues, you have accountability issues, right? People stop moving workflows, or they have their own systems outside the system to keep track, like Excel lists of their clients. So I think that's something that we saw culturally, that I know a lot of firms on here probably are dealing with the same thing.
Yeah, really, really helpful. And we'll dig a little bit further into that under the change management, because I think that's really important, is just how to manage communication, how to get the right people and stakeholders on board. So it's really helpful. Alan, are you back? Are you? Perhaps he's still muted. I'm going to go ahead and move to the next one, which is, okay, so we've got the signals. We know we need to do something. And along the lines of what you just imparted to the group here today, Penny, like when you look at executing, from an overall perspective, how do you get started? Who are the right people to get on board? How do you communicate that? Where do you start? You know you have a problem. You know you need to get better visibility across the tax, audit, or CAS process. What did that look like for Anchin from your experience?
So first and foremost, we really needed to understand and dig into the why, right? Like if you don't have a strong narrative or a change story that's going to pull people together as an organization to want to make the change, you're going to have a problem getting any kind of buy-in. And then beyond that, beyond being super clear as to why you need to make the change you need to make, you need to make sure you have the right stakeholders in the room, and not just stakeholders who can give you ideas and information, but ones that are able to make decisions and get on board and be champions for you. So for us, what that looked like was making sure we had good representation from each of our service lines, and each of our industry heads, and also representatives from the internal teams who are going to be affected. And I'm not talking 30 stakeholders. You get a small room together that are going to be the decision makers at the top. So that's sort of what, and of course we needed an executive member to be aligned, to be sure we were aligned. But we didn't want this to be something that the executive committee had to micromanage. They have the right people in the roles. They wanted us to lead the change. So that's sort of what our approach was.
Makes sense. So obviously you're identifying the right folks, you're getting the right stakeholders. Did you get pushback? What were some of the objections? What were some of the obstacles that you faced in getting the right people on board? And just looking back, what are maybe some of the lessons learned at the very start of that?
Yeah, I think, making sure we spend time on stakeholders who may be challenging. Historically, you have a group of people who are going to be anti-change. You don't necessarily want them on the committee, but you sure want them aligned. And I think maybe we needed to spend a little more time with some of those individuals. And it's not that their concerns aren't valid, but some people need a little more handholding. The other thing I think that looking back on now, and it's something that maybe we'll talk about later if we have time, what we found is this generational divide, where we needed a little more handholding on the change and the need for the technology on the longer term older generations, because they're used to successfully doing what they did, how they did it, and they understood they needed change, but it's a lot to ask. And meanwhile, the earlier in career generation, they're digital native. They want more technology. They want everything in an app, right? So navigating that a little bit, I think was a challenge that we're still sort of working through on some of our projects. Yeah.
No, that's a really
Don.
Yeah.
Alan,
Hey,
here.
Alan. Yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
good.
Alan.
Hey, Alan.
How
Yay.
are you? You got
Sorry.
it working.
Hello, everybody. I apologize for whatever reason. I can't get off of. I can't get my camera to work. Regardless, agree with everything that's just been said. Look, as I looked at the journey that Baker Tilly went on, and we transformed the organization massively, we also grew it massively. And as I always say, and if you've read anything that I've put out there over the last going on 2 years, all roads lead to and from strategy. So all these changes or acts of progress, all these new ways of doing things need to be aligned to strategy. And so, Penny, I think you said, look, you got to come up with a narrative. You got to come up with a story. You got to get people to join the movement. Couldn't agree more. And the firms that are able to well articulate where we're headed strategically and what is going to be necessary to achieve that is critical. I'll give you one example. It took Baker Tilly 10 years to implement Salesforce. 10 years. It was a short implementation period. And I remember having two things I want to share. I remember having a conversation with somebody who, big book of business, based on prior metrics was doing great. And I told the individual, I said, well, you're off strategy because you're not implementing, you're doing it the old fashioned way with an envelope and a pen beside your bed. And he said, well, what are you talking about? I have a $3 million book of business. And I'm like, well, because this implementation is part of strategy and it's going to enable us to do other things. It's part of strategy. So all of this, using HubSync and all the tools that it has, that's part of strategy. That enables you to achieve things that you can't achieve under the old way of doing things. And when I told people that they were off strategy by not embracing where we were headed, it actually got to the root cause of the winning the hearts, not just the minds. The other thing I'll share with you is I was talking with another individual, senior partner, and he said, look, Alan, it's not that we object to where you want us to go, but you have to remember, we've done it this way, whatever way we're changing from or moving from, we've done it 10 times a day, every day of the year for 10 years times 3,500 people or 4,000 people or 6,000 people. Think about the repetitions and the muscle memory that we've had. Yeah. You're asking us to leave a comfort zone. And I agree with the generational issue that Penny, you mentioned. There's no question about that. But again, this is a mindset shift. And as somebody usually once said to me recently, human nature is undefeated. Human nature is to stay with what you know. And it's undefeated because everybody sticks there. And so again, you've got to be able to articulate the where you're headed and stick with it every day. And this is strategy based, top down, not bottom up, because you'll get buried in this change and that change and that change and this change. So you gotta raise yourself up to, this is all about strategy and getting the organization to where you want it to be.
I love that. So really laddering up, elevating the conversation, making sure people understand how this maps back to the company North Star as a strategy, because it's one part of what you're trying to do with Firm of the Future. That's really, 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 really helpful. And while we're on change management, I think I think that's one of the really key things. When you look at the strategy, and I'll start with you, Alan, on Baker Tilly, what were the key reasons? What were the things that compelled, like when Ken or others came to you and said, hey, this is an integral part of this overall transformation journey that we want to align with? From your perspective, what did that look like? How did it, was it about creating competitive advantage? Was it about making sure that you were able to remove friction in the process? Like from a CEO perspective, I think it's really important to know what's top of mind for you with regards to like the KPIs you're measuring and how this actually threads and aligns with that.
Well, it all has to do with user experience and customer experience. If that's a competitive advantage, sure, but it's all a matter of experience. And look, we CPA profession need to change the experience, improve the experience that people have when coming into our esteemed profession. Our organizations, in my mind, are still antiquated by and large, which is why I've coined the phrase break the mold. We've got to break the mold of the past. And so for me, it was, again, we needed a better user experience and a better customer experience, which will enable us to run faster, design better mousetraps, be more competitive in the marketplace, basically execute our strategy. And so I hired the right people, whether it was Ken, whether it was Craig, whether it was Michelle and team, and just said, guys, go do it. I'm not going to tell you what to do or how. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. The what is advance the and advance the service line and make it more 2025 and make the experience that people have better. We coined the phrase in the organization, career non-value added tasks. Now you use the word friction. That's another way of saying it. There are so many career non-value added tasks in everything that we do on a daily basis. It's silly because people aren't able to do the things they came to do, be great tax advisors or be great auditors, et cetera, because we've got all this other minutia that we have to do, whether it's shifting from one platform to another, and your example, Penny, of we've all got our side schedules, our Excel spreadsheets of clients and new business development, and I had managing partners that ran their own comp models outside the firm's comp model.
Oh, wow.
Because they didn't trust, and so that's just layers of paint on the bottom of a boat that slows it down. Being a boater, I certainly know from that. And so we need to streamline the processes so there's less friction and there's one source of truth, whether it's data or process. And so this was a matter again of enhancing experience in order for us to have a better chance of executing strategy more quickly. Yeah.
Remove the drag on the sails, the drag on the boat. I like that. Make it more aerodynamic. Switching over to you, Penny. You talked about getting the right stakeholders involved and making sure that you had the right communication plan. It sounds like. I'd be curious just to hear from your perspective as COO, what was the initial feedback? What feedback stood out to you when you started to embark on this, and what challenges did you have to overcome there?
When we started implementing?
Yeah, just with the overall change process.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think most of the professionals in the accounting industry realize that the industry is ripe for change, right? Like there's a lot of outdated processes, outdated experiences, and our teams are the same. They know that we need to change and adapt and grow. Luckily at Anchin, we have our people are willing to do that work. Like they're excited about moving forward and transforming how we do what we do. Of course, there were general concerns. A lot of the concerns focused on client experience, making sure that from the client perspective, their experience is getting upgraded and not missing anything after the change. And also administratively, we wanted to be sure that there were some concerns around making sure we weren't adding to the administrative burden of the managers, senior managers, directors, partners, so that they could focus on the things they needed to focus on, that value added time with their clients, not doing all these administrative tasks. And really, HubSync's helped us to reduce that, not increase it. So, but those are the concerns that came up, bubbled up from the beginning. And there were some there's a few different things, maybe software they were used to using, and they had gotten, organized it to a point where they were happy enough with the software they had. And so changing that's a little scary. But I think, again, having the right stakeholders and information in the room and gathering that feedback. And so feedback's iterative, right? So as you don't just get it once, do what you're going to do and then implement it, right? So you have to continually tell the story, continually get the feedback and adapt, right? And as Alan said, making sure that the adaptations you're making and the feedback you're listening to and the things you're implementing all tie back to the vision of the executive committee and the strategy of the firm, right? So, and this is just, HubSync is one piece of this like AI technology strategy for the firm. So how does that all tie together? But
yeah, makes sense. Did you find like you set up quick wins so that you could communicate that back to the team to actually anchor to that to show progress? Or was that part of the plan as you started to like implement engagement letter and you started to look at organizing and gathering, collecting information?
Yeah. So, well, that's a huge piece, right? So cleaning your data before you go into something like this is enormous, right? Because if you can put great technology in the middle of horrible processes and bad data, and it's never going to work. So we had to set up all of that ahead of time and really understand what we needed to do there. We did, the engagement letter, we started with the engagement letter wizard, which is like probably the most complex module because of all the detail and the differentiation each firm has on their letters. So, what we did at the same time is try to merge the tax return tracker, which I think for us that was a short win, like a short-term amazing win, because we are using Thomson Reuters Firm Flow, which anyone that uses that program, it's really hard to navigate and to pull information out and to see where things are and run reports that are useful. And so HubSync's resolved a lot of that. We were able to do custom views. I have an awesome the head of tax operations, Sophia, put together all these perfect views. People could just click and see what was out there. And so that helped drive momentum to, hey, this is pretty good. What else are we going to be doing? So that's how we sort of approached it. We tried to do a mix of like the hard work, longer term projects and some of the short wins that we could build up continue that excitement and that drive for the change to help people, because people get change weary. So if they don't have victories, they get tired. So
yeah, they want to see the ball moving down the field, as we like to say, right? We want to see the plane moving down pushing away from the gate, but more importantly, getting on the tarmac and taking off. Just to our earlier travel experience. So I think that's really helpful. Just we've hit on a couple of topics. So how do you get started? Who do you get involved? How do you communicate the plan? How do you iterate on the plan? How do you make sure that you connect and align with the North Star and the company strategy, of which technology plays a part. It's not the only part, but making sure that everybody's aligned on where you're going as a firm. When you take that to the next level, the value of consolidation, from a client perspective, maybe I'll start with you, Alan. What do you see as the benefit, not directly to the outcome of like specific things that HubSync provided, but as an outcome to that project from a CEO perspective? What do you believe that helped enable Baker Tilly to do as an organization?
Well, I want them to be focusing on the subject matter expertise that we're delivering, right?
Or competencies. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. Look, the firm that's able to shift from production or input, number of keystrokes, number of steps, to one of outcomes and value is going to win. And I don't know if anybody's really gotten there yet. I don't think anybody has. People are in their journey. So the more you can the more you eliminate steps, you said friction. Look, we're all consumers. All of us are consumers. So think about the difficulty that we have when we want to sign up for something, when we want to buy something, we want to get to a help desk, we want to submit information, and it doesn't go well. Well, that's what our clients experience. And you don't have a great feeling for an organization where their interface is not very robust. We're no different. Just because we're professional services, we're still trying to use portals and connectivity and transfer data. So we've got to realize that we are a consumer, B2C, B2B, but we have customers, and they want to be connected with as seamlessly and easily as possible. And so, unfortunately, what I've seen is, being technicians and being subject matter experts, et cetera, we're very focused on what we deliver. And we experienced this when we redid Baker Tilly's strategy back in 2018. We were always an inside-out organization. What are we going to do versus what is the client going to get? And take an outside-in view. So if you sit back and you take an outside-in view on how they connect with the organization, even as simple as submitting a 1099 or submitting a general ledger or submitting, I don't know, what have you. It's that stuff. So to me, it's the ease of dealing with the organization. That's the value that I see in organization discipline, right? Jocko Willink, in his book, Extreme Ownership, coined the phrase discipline equals freedom. A lot of people don't like discipline because, well, they're telling me what to do. They're ruining my entrepreneurial spirit. I want to do it my way. I want to have control. When what they're really missing is discipline. Getting things structured and organized and simple actually allows you to have some freedom, because you know the things are going to get done one way every time, systemically, et cetera. That actually does allow you to have some more freedom and explore the fringes. And most people don't think of it that way. They think what we're taking away from them rather than the time and the freedom that we're giving them.
Yeah, I like that. You're empowering innovation by unlocking. You're liberating them in a lot of ways. Even though it may not look like that, it's actually allowing you to pivot and explore other opportunities to be more proactive with your clients, to look at new services and areas of growth. So that's really that's interesting and instrumental. Penny, from your perspective, when you kind of look at where you are in your journey, and the journey's never done, the journey is iterative. like anything else, right? The environment changes, technology changes, tariffs change, salt changes, everything changes in the industry. But when you look at the kind of the overall investment in this consolidation process, what have you seen as the biggest return to date? Whether that be culture, client relationships, retention, operational performance.
So I would say in a lot of different areas, I would point specifically to our operational efficiencies. I know one of the things, Don, that you and I had talked about over the weeks has been the surprise that we've had at how transformative the HubSync platform has been on some of our back office processes, as an example. So we used to have, we have a specific team for tax return assembly and then e-filing, and we would bring in temps and we would have lots of overtime. And between the engagement letter module and the just using the tax return tracker and how effective it is at tracking all of the information, we eliminated all of our temps and most of our overtime. So
Wow.
in one season. So it was pretty surprising to us and exciting. So that's one thing that we've done. And the other thing I will say is it has started to open up a behavior or a mindset change, a perspective change at the firm. That the teams that are, a lot of people across the firm use HubSync. And so now they're seeing the value of innovation, and now they have ideas. Ideas are coming forward. They're excited about being part of things. So it's kind of driving a new perspective and excitement through all the levels of the firm around what's possible for the future of Anchin, how we're going to transform the organization.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I know we're up against the hour, but just having a growth-oriented mindset, which is what I hear kind of as an outcome of the whole project, gets you thinking as an entrepreneur. I think that levels back to and anchors to what some of the things both of you have said throughout the conversation. I'm going to pause just for a second just to see if we have any questions out there on the Q&A. I'm taking a quick look here.
I'm sure Alan and I are also available for questions if you want to pass any forward. If anyone from the audience has questions they want to send Don, or, he can pass them along as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, anyone online, if you don't have any questions you'd like to ask with the few minutes we have left here, feel free to post them, or we can also follow up. We encourage you to do that. We will be at Boomer, just for those that are attending HubSync next week. We'll be there between the 18th and I think it's the 22nd out in Missouri. Hope to see some of you there. And again, thank you so much for your time today, Alan and Penny. We'll get some of the follow-up. If you guys want to contact us, some of the information is here provided in this slide, sales@hubsync.com. We'll pass that on. We'll connect you up. We'll make sure that we get those questions answered and provide you some feedback. Thanks again for attending our session. By the way, we are recording this, so we will have that available as a follow-up as well for everybody.